Okay, so not exactly how I became a bohemian, but more accurately, how I discovered that I was a bohemian in business. So I'm going to tell you about a few stories about what happened to me when I had been in business as a consultant for about 6, 7 years. My associate and I had approached a company in downtown Toronto on Bay Street, which is, for those of you who are not in Canada, Bay Street is the financial center of Canada. That's where all the big money is, for the most part. And so we approached this company, and we knew that they needed us because they had horrible, disastrous reports, and they were extremely hard to read. And we came in saying, listen, here's what we can do for you. Here's what we've done for other companies on Bay Street. And they said, wow, this is amazing. You guys are exactly what we've been looking for. So we went back and we drafted a proposal, and then we came back for a second meeting, and they sat down and said, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. This is great. You know, we don't have anybody else that we're looking for to do this. So yeah, we'll be in touch. So Alice and I went back home, respectively, because as you know, consultants work from home for the most part. Other people would say we work in our pajamas, which, you know, it's true, we do. So we sat around and we waited. And we waited. And then we waited some more. So after about 3 weeks, Alice said, you know, maybe we should call them. And I said, yeah, maybe we should. And I didn't. And by the 4th week, I did call them, but I never heard back. I left a message. Now, by this time I was getting mad. Grrr. So I decided I would pop open some Henry of Pelham Baco Noir and imbibe. And I popped some corn and sat down in my living room to watch reruns of Columbo. And the phone rang. Yes, hello? Sorry, your name again? Lee. Why, yes, that is the kind of business that I do. So, pause for a moment. So, this was a guy I'd never heard of before. And he was asking me if I would help him work on proposals for his company, his software firm. So, I said, sure, I'd absolutely love to do that, Lee. How did you hear about me? He said, I heard about you through Michelle. Michelle is my sister-in-law. Michelle? Michelle who? He said, she was in your class at the University of Toronto. Now, a couple of months beforehand, I would say maybe 6 months before, I had taught a course in business communications at University of Toronto in their School of Continuing Studies. And Michelle had attended one class. Now, so after I kind of caught my breath there, because I just couldn't believe this, he invited me to his office the next morning. We made a deal the next day, and Lee became my biggest client for the next he became a big client of mine for 3 years, but we continued to do business together for about 9 years after that. He was a very successful software firm. When he first hired me, he was working out of his basement with his brother, and they now have a thriving business in Markham. So here I was thinking, now just a minute here. How is this possible? You've got on the one hand this company that we worked so hard to get business from, and on the other hand, I'm handed this contract on a silver platter. I just couldn't believe this. Well, what's going on here? So the thing is that lights hadn't turned on yet. I didn't see what was going on. This was back in 1998, and I didn't realize what was really going on. So the thing is, it happened again. I was trying to get some more contracts, some big contracts with some other big companies in downtown Toronto, and with no success. So my best friend called me up, my best friend on Manitoulin Island. She calls me up and she says, hey, Laurie, I'm coming down to see my sister in Toronto, and why don't you come and see me there? So I drove to see her at her sister's place. And after she went to bed, I sat down talking to her brother-in-law. Now, I'm going to call him Edward because that's his name. And Edward says to me, I asked him what he was doing for work, and he was a project manager at the time with Sun Microsystems. Everybody here knows Sun Microsystems, right? They're no longer here, but, you know, they have gone on to a better place, apparently. So I asked him more about his job as project manager, and he told me that they're having problems with their reports. So I said, hey, I'd love to help you out. A few days later, he called me up. Hey, Edward, how's it going? He says, yeah, Laurie, my boss wants to talk to you. Now, his boss, I'm going to call her Mercedes, because that was her name. She needed help with her reports. They were disastrous, and she was noticing that her salespeople were just tearing their hair out because of this, as were their customers. So I said, let me come down and see you. So I drove to Markham to see them, and they hired me to do a presentation at their next quarterly meeting in Calgary. I did a presentation for this company, Sun Microsystems, and here's the thing. I look back on this opportunity, and I was perplexed. How did this happen? I did not work at it. I didn't do any business development. I didn't do any networking. I didn't do any cold calling. I didn't send out emails or letters to try to sell my services. It came to me on a silver platter. So by about this time, I started to put two and two together, and I started surveying the history of my company. So what I did was I sat down and I looked at all the contracts that I'd done up till then, and I divided them into two camps. Now, on one side was the contracts that I had gotten through traditional business development methods, my own sales, my own cold calling, all my own outreach, by trying to get business. And then on the other side, I put a pile of invoices of these companies who'd given me projects without my having to work at it. And over here on this pile, the contracts that I had worked for and tried to earn, I couldn't find any. There were absolutely no contracts that I had gotten through that method. And on the other side, all of my business had come through the red wine and popcorn formula, where I could have been just sitting around drinking red wine, eating popcorn, and the phone rang. In my next video, I'll tell you more stories about how my business developed this way.